In this video, I'd like to talk about a comparison between an invocation that I wrote in April of last year and Michael Ford's invocation that he just wrote for his new book a couple of months ago. And they both relate to the Roman deity Mars. Mars is a very powerful energy, and I was very careful when I invoked Mars. I thought carefully about what could happen in invoking a power like that. But it wasn't really that hard for me to understand, because I'm an Aries, and astrologically my Mars is also in Aries. So I'm very close to that energy. I can relate to it really well. And that's the main reason why I had to be careful in creating my invocation. So I created my invocation for personal and spiritual reasons. And I realized that it was time for a new energy. It was time to move forward. It was time to really start my life. And by invoking Mars, I felt like it was also invoking an aspect of myself that I could really relate to. It was very powerful. I took about 5 days to do my research for Mars. And in those 5 days, I spent many hours studying about the nature of Mars and reading about his legends, because the more that I could know about this god, the closer I could be to him when I invoked him. So I did the research, and I also purchased a Mars oil blend to use with candle magic. And in my invocation to Mars, it was not just an invocation of the god of war. It was an invocation of everything that Mars represented. And everything that Mars represented came in the form of his attendants, the other gods that should be invoked if a person is going to invoke the god Mars from Roman mythology. I just felt like it was appropriate. So I included 14 other gods in the invocation. These are the gods that help him to manifest. But what I learned about working with Mars as a deity and as a planetary spirit was that Mars is very forceful. Mars gets what he wants. Mars protects what he loves. Mars is very much about justice and victory and overcoming obstacles. So I found the energy of Mars to be very beneficial. And in tribute to his powers, I created my dance video, and I posted that a couple of days later after I made my invocation. The ritual went really good. I was very happy with it. I felt like the time that I spent working with Mars as a deity and as a planetary spirit, I felt like I learned a lot. I felt complete. I felt like things really worked out for me, because I didn't really approach Mars with anything but a tribute, with anything more than just my interest in his energies and what he represented as a Roman deity. Well, a couple months ago, Michael Ford released a video explaining his invocation to Aries. Michael Ford takes it back even further by creating this invocation to Aries, who was the predecessor to Mars. He was the Aries was the Greek deity, and Mars was the Roman deity. So in Michael Ford's invocation to Aries, he says that the main use for his invocation is to incite Mars as a god of war and to conquer whatever is in anybody's path, which I can agree with. I think that's a really good concept, but it's also important to have a balance, because in working with the energy of Mars, it's really easy for things to get out of control. And what I mean by out of control is that in working with a deity or a spirit or a demon or any kind of thing like that, there's the opportunity and the chance for those type of energies to manifest into your life. And if you're not spiritually grounded, it's really easy to get off track, to get sidetracked, or to go down the wrong path, or to just not have things work out the way that you want them to. Because at some point, when you're involving another deity into your magical practice, they are going to influence your life. And if you're not spiritually aware enough or spiritually strong enough to be able to handle that, it could affect you in ways that you may not like. I guess that's the simplest way to explain it. So anyway, I just feel like my invocation to Mars was a little bit more balanced, because not only do I call up Mars as the father of Rome and the protector of all that he loves, I call upon Mars as a bringer of justice, not really as a bringer of war, but as a bringer of justice. And at the end of my invocation is a saying in Roman Latin that basically says that in order to have peace, you must first have war. Because that was the whole idea behind my whole invocation. That in order to conquer something, you have to first understand it, and you have to first be able to work with it in order to know how it works, and then you'll be able to have control over it, and you will be able to conquer it. In Michael Ford's invocation, he tries to reach out to some ancient sources, which is fine. That's great. But I wish he would have taken the time to explain how those ancient gods are going to help us in our life today. How are those energies going to help us manifest what we want? That's the thing that I had most in mind when I created my ritual. Because I wasn't just invoking Mars just to invoke Mars, to feel the energy and the power. I was invoking Mars to make him a part of my spirit. Not because I wanted to fight or to be a fighter, but because I wanted to understand his energies. I wanted to be close to him. So whenever you have time, please check out my invocation to Mars that I wrote last year. It's at my website in the witchcraft section.